Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are back here with Bilbo, and I always afraid I'm going to mess up his last name, Göransson. He's one of the top GSC players in the world. Last time we talked about 3 months ago was when this book was brand newish, would you say, coming out? And we kind of got Bilbo's take on what we thought GSC would do, how they'd fare. And we're just going to do a little update with him, see how he thinks how they did, how they performed. Didn't you just come back from a team tournament you mentioned? So what we could do is just get your takes overall, how you feel they did, and then we could quickly maybe touch on the missions, because I don't think it would be worth going too detailed in them, because in a couple weeks we're going to have Warzone Nephilim or whatever it's called, or so I heard it's going to be maybe pre-releasing on the 25th or coming out on the 25th or something. I don't know. So Bilbo, how's it been going in this new book with the GSC?
Well, it's surpassed my expectations, I would say. I mean, I was actually really thrilled about the changes, because you can now they changed the rod, the old. I mean, when we met, we were playing the old missions at the LVO, and then that was the last tournament that played the old missions. So that's when they went over to the new mission pack, the Nachmund. I always pronounce that in a very German way, Nachmund, which is it's just so deep, you know, so sinister word. But it's basically like night world. It fits the grimdark feeling. And I think the changes we were discussing a little bit, but I hadn't read the missions during the LVO because I didn't want to think about the new missions while playing the old ones at my first time in the US, right? So I think, but I was already excited about the change from rod to R&D. Before you had to do 3 actions, now you had to do 4. And I think GSC is really good at doing actions, because we have these small troops that can deep strike anywhere, and you can deep strike 3, 6, or 8 inches away instead of the regular 9, and the whole army can deep strike instead of just some specific troops. So I always thought that the new retrieve Nachmund data, right, that would be a good pick. But I think the homers, the teleport homers thing, is actually even better, because you can take 4 points every turn you do the action, and you can deep strike really close. Deep into enemy territory, and just before you had to score teleport homers in the next turn, so you had to wait for your whole opponent's turn, his rebuttal, to score the teleport homers. But now you score it in the end of the turn if you do it with one of your troops. So that means you can just tally up your points while doing that one, and at the same time it goes really well with the secondary, let's see, the brood swarm. It's called the brood swarm, where it's basically you get 15 points if you deep strike in your opponent's deployment zone for a couple of times. You know, you get 4 points each turn if you swarm the board with your model. So it goes really well. Those two go really well. It's like peas in a pot. They're fantastic. I was expecting that, and that's basically what I experienced too during this season. So I, just like you said, I was just at the team tournament. We played 5 games. I won all 5 of mine. My team ended up in bang in the middle, like position 11 out of 23 or 24 teams. So as a team, we didn't go to the top, but it was actually closer than it sounds. I mean, if we had gained just a couple of more points in the last game, we could have ended up 3rd or 4th or something like that. It was a really cool experience. I love team tournaments. It was my first one. I already love them. But back to the GSC. I mean, I think it's a good army because they're so versatile. They can play there's one mission where you don't get command points if you don't have units in the if you don't control your home objective. But taking the home objective from from Genestealer cults is really hard because they have the blips and they can deep strike in their home, in their deployment zone and so on. But it's also easy for the Genestealer cults to take the enemy objective, so you don't get command points because they can deep strike so far. They can deep strike 3 inches away, so they can just snatch the objective from you under your nose, so you don't get command points. The other one is where you there's a mission. I mess up the names, but there's a mission where you can't pre-game move.
That one is
into
abandoned
no man's land, and you
sanctuaries,
can't deploy in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
abandoned
it sounds about
sanctuaries.
right. So what the Genestealer cults does instead, I mean, they don't need that because they move, their pre-game moves are in the command phase. So it's not pre-game, it's just very early in the game. They can move into no man's land anyway, and they can deep strike turn 1, or they can, come from reserves turn 1. So all the things that people were really struggling with in the old book, Genestealer cults actually have a lot of tools at their disposal to work around that. At the same time, I mean, we really struggled against custodes early in the during the season, but now they got nerfed. So I think, Genestealers are actually in a really good spot. I always have a blast playing them. Sorry, it was a short question, long answer kind of thing.
That's good. That's good. So here's a question. Let's just say I'm a new player. I get Genestealer cults. What would you say? We'll just touch on this briefly because in 2 weeks we're going to have Warzone Nephilim. But let's look at this real quick and be just saying I'm a new Genestealer player. What secondaries would say your go-to secondaries are? Because I mean, like, I know there's like 1 or 2 that you always take, right? You go to the table, go, I'm always taking these 3, but if there's this, I might. But if I wanted to start new Genestealer, what would you say would be the best 3 or 4-ish secondaries to take for the Genestealer cults? That, I mean, we know Rod, right? Or Retrieve Not Wound Data. That's you guys. You do that one.
Yeah.
Well. So, but
yeah, but I think that one or Teleport Homers, as I said, Teleport Homers. It's there you can. The max amount of points you get from Teleport Homers is 15 instead of Rod or R&D is 12. So it's kind of a it's one of those, right? If it's an opponent that really wants to rush you, then I would say Teleport Homers, because then he or she will leave a lot of room for you to deep strike and do Teleport Homers. If they're not that kind of army, if you think that they will actually keep you, if they will keep back, if they're like Iron Hands, for instance, they want to keep back and keep firing, right? Then you might want to take R&D instead, to pick a couple of points out of harm's way. So one of those, I would say, that's 2 great secondaries. One that I always take, and it's almost not a lie if I say I always score 15 points on Brood Swarm. Sometimes, like my last game this weekend against Grey Knights, actually just scored 14. I was almost tabled, but I still won the game on points because we scrambled for the middle. There was a couple of really, he was a great player, great real gentleman. But there was a couple of, like, we were down to just like 4 characters each or something like that. It was just nothing left. I still scored 14 points on that one. So 14 to 15 points every game, I would say Brood Swarm. Brood Swarm is your go-to. If you're a Genestealer Cults player, always start with Brood Swarm and then work from there. So those 2, either Homers and Brood Swarm or R&D and Brood Swarm, that's, it's a no-brainer. That's what you do. The third one has been a struggle, but there's a trick up your sleeve as a Genestealer Cults player. You don't even have to tell your third objective to your opponent.
Oh, you don't?
So what you do is you write down your third objective on a piece of paper, like on the back side of your score sheet, so both can see it afterwards, and you don't, you have to say where the paper is, so you don't trick him, or trick yourself, because sometimes I forget. I have to check what was I doing now. I trick myself, really gene cult kind of thing. So last time I took To the Last, for instance, because I thought I could keep back from the Grey Knights, but he killed 2 of my units. But he was convinced, because I wrote it down on a piece of paper. He was convinced I was taking Assassinate. So he tried to hide his characters, but he was really sad. Every time I killed a character, I killed 4 of his characters, which was all of them. So he thought, all right, that's 13 points, right? He was counting in his head, and he was saying it out loud too, like, all right, that's 3 more points for you. And I was like biting my tongue, like, no, I have To the Last, So I always take something that I think I can score 10 points on. So To the Last was I only scored 5, so it was a bad one for me. But To the Last, or Assassinate, or Bring It Down, or something like that, usually about 10 points. And then I try to score 15 each on the other 2. That's 40 points on secondaries. If you go with those 3 and hide the third one, so we can't really tell where you're going, I would say that's a great start for Genestealer cults.
Perfect. That works great. Is there any okay, you've played a few missions now with in the new book. Is there any mission that you're like, oh crap, this one's gonna be a slog? And is there one where you take it and you're like, oh, this is really great for me, it's gonna work well?
No, actually, I was thinking about this just the other day. Like, every time I know what mission it is, I'm like, great, this one is really good for me. So it's like always, the hold 1 missions are easier. They're more forgiving than the hold 2 missions. The missions where you have to hold 2 in order to get any primary points. So I always prefer the hold 1 objectives. However, I think since hold 2 is harder on the other opponent too, if it's a swingy match, if you can get that alpha strike punch in, I think we have a good chance against hold 2 missions too. So no, not really. I think all of the missions are really, really strong for different reasons. Some of them are like the one where you have to, if you need your warlord on the table in order to get command points. I can't remember which one it was. Since we can deep strike so close to him, we can actually focus down on killing his warlord turn 1 or 2. And that way he won't get any command points for the rest of the game. So you can use the mission. That's what I love about Nachmund compared to the old one. You can really cripple your opponent's. You can really cripple your opponent by playing the mission, and especially those specialist rules in each mission. Like, let's see, there's another one where you put bombs down.
Tear down their
icons.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that one. Yeah,
it's one of my favorites. Yeah, because since I always fill out my troop slots, I have a lot of models that you can just go around doing actions. And that way you can just tally up points, primary points on top of your secondaries.
Yeah,
and your opponent.
They forget. It's like, because no one in our group hardly does it, because we either forget it, or it's like when you're playing Space Marines, you don't have as many units to go out and do this stuff. But a lot of people like, oh yeah, they remember to put one down turn 4, and get the 5 point. But it's when you got a lot of little units like that, you can do it. So yeah. It's
since there. I mean, what normally happens for me in that mission is that I deep strike a bucket load in one corner and just shoot everything and charge the rest. So what my opponent has to do is to move around and just keep away from that corner, because that's where my firepower is. And the reach on the seismic cannons and mining lasers is not great. It's not enormous. So what I do is, I mean, they're stuck there, so now they can't shoot anything. They can move on to objectives and stuff. But in that mission, they can do actions still. So they can just put down their bombs, score me some like 12 more points or something, just for what, and they can't do that on other missions. At the same time, you have all these other units. And I've played that mission maybe 5 times. I've never seen anyone else do actions on that mission. Like no one else puts down bombs. It's just me.
No, it's crazy.
So I never had to take the bomb. You can disarm the bombs for another action. I never had to do it. I never saw anyone do it.
Normally it's like, I'm trying to kill this, or I'm trying to protect that. I'm like, I ain't got to worry about no bombs. I'm like,
yeah, exactly. So no, I think that it's one of those things, right? Where actually the rules for
uh-oh.
I don't know what happened.
That's okay. You said the rules for, and then you cut out for a second.
Oh yeah, sorry. So the rules for Genestealer cults are not particularly strong. They're not like Tau was. They're not like the like Eldari when they came out. They're not like Tyranids. But for some reason, you know, how the book is written plays really well into these specific missions in the Nachmund book. So because of things like that, like we don't pregame move there's a special rule. You usually do it on pure strain Genestealers. They move like 22 inches in your first turn. So they don't move before the game, but they double move in your first command phase, right? So yep. They can really be in your face turn 1, which is, you know, no other army can do that. And they also have this drop pod kind of rule that you can put on your neophytes or whatever, and you can blip around. So it while it hampers or limits the possibilities, the mission limits the possibilities of most other armies, but they leave the Genestealer cults intact. And I really like that about the Nachmund book. I think we would have struggled this season with Genestealer cult if it wasn't for the missions being almost like meticulously, purposefully formulated so that we can play them better. I don't know. It's a really, really fun book. I'm gonna miss it, but I'm looking forward to the new ones too.
Yeah, I personally experienced all that fancy movement at LVO in our practice game. And I was like, I've never played Genestealer. You're like, this is what's gonna happen, and it's gonna hurt. And I'm like, what? And then like, next thing you know, everything's over in my face. I'm like, wait, what happened? I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, we got to get this guy on for an interview. He's really good. So, but okay.
Yeah,
so,
I felt bad. I remember.
I didn't.
I remember that game.
I learned. I've never played.
Yeah.
And you know what the weird part? I've never played Genestealer since. No one plays Genestealers around here. I mean, we have a guy who's building an army right now. He's really geeked to see what you have to say on stuff. He's a new guy that's kind of joined our group. I'm really excited. So is there any army that real quick, that I wanted to ask. So in Sweden there, or wherever you normally play, do you guys use player place terrain, or do you come up to a table and it's set? Because here in America, pretty much any tournament you go to now, it's all player place terrain. So, but I just don't know it's like where you're at. So that affects the missions a lot. So how do you guys do it?
Yeah. Actually, when I came back from Vegas, that was my first tournament with player place terrain. And I was really skeptical about it. But then I played some games and I thought it was kind of cool. And then after the LVO, I was like, this is actually how you're supposed to play the game. So at my local store, we always play with player place terrain now. Everyone does it. You know, the local tournaments, they place terrain. They have a player place terrain. The friendly games, everyone does it, you know, and we're building the terrain in specific ways so that they can fit on the board when you player placed it. However, the big scene in Europe, I think, in England and in Sweden at least, which is where I've been playing, they have fixed maps. So you put everything down, and you get a little booklet when you start the tournament, and it says exactly where every piece of terrain is supposed to be, which is more administration. I think it's a hassle, and it takes more time. But that's how you usually do it here. So although I think it's better with place terrain, I think it makes for more exciting matchups. I'm always and when I do my practice games, I always do it with place terrain, which is a problem because all the big tournaments like the GTs, the majors, they have terrain that is placed in a certain way, and I can't really affect it. So then I have to move around terrain that I haven't placed. I think it's a problem. Sorry, it was another one of those long answers to a short question kind of thing. But in Europe, it's basically you don't have place terrain except like small pockets of resistance like our club.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. So we have about 9 minutes left before the timer runs out. So I'm going to ask you one question, then another one, and then we'll call it there. So real quick, if I was a Genestealer player in this 9th edition, what would you say? Name a couple units that you're like, these are the ones you want to have that are good at working in the book.
So I would say if we would there's so many, man. There's so many. Okay. But it's fun. It makes for a great toolbox. So there are some units that you really need in any army. That's a 10-man unit of Genestealers, a pure strain Genestealers. Those are the ones with 4 arms. Then you have a Patriarch, which is the warlord, and he should always be your warlord. I tried to play without him. Doesn't work. He's supposed to be there. Those are 2 main units, and then you need at least 1 unit of bikes, which is they're cheap, they're durable, they can lob nukes, hand nukes into the face of the enemy. They give out exposed. It's a great one. And you have a Nexus, which gives out a crossfire marker, which gives you +1 to hit and +1 to wound and ignore cover if you position it correctly on 1 unit every turn. He's great. He also gives you back command points. Fantastic. So if you start there, you have the Patriarch, the Nexus, the pure strain Genestealers, and a unit of bikes. So that's a great start from I've never seen a list without those. Then you should also have the Kellermorph, which is the gunman, Jesse James. He's really cool. But he also, he deep strikes, he moves after he shoots, so he can deep strike out of the objective, shoot someone off the objective, move in and charge them. So he also shoots when he dies. So when you try to take back the objective, he shoots you again and takes the objective away from you again. So he's a really good, one of those really gotcha characters that you need in your arsenal. So that's, I think, in any game, I would lean heavily into one of the 2 troop choices, neophytes or acolytes. You could do a mix. Neophytes shoots mining lasers or seismic cannons. They can deep strike and shoot, or they can shoot out of the cars, the Goliath trucks. The acolytes, they have rock weapons that they fight with in close combat. That's basically the difference. So these units that I said in the beginning, I would put them in any list, every list. I would always put them down. But then after I put them down, I would also pick either max out my 6 troop choices with neophytes. Those are the shooting ones. Or max out with the acolytes. So you need at least 60 bodies with OBSEC. Those are either neophytes or acolytes. So if you want a fighting unit, you need acolytes. If you want a shooting unit, you need the neophytes. I do both. I have 3 and 3. But I think you can make an argument for leaning into one of them. You can lean into the acolytes or lean into the neophytes. That's probably the basic. And then if you have points left, would probably if you would max out the troops choices, I would say you have about 500 more points. You could put another Magus in. You can put a Magus in. That's another spellcaster, cheap spellcaster. You could put a Primus in, which gives you reroll ones to hit with either the Neophytes or the Acolytes, which is great, of course. You could put the Icon Ward in, and Icon Ward is the guy with the banner. I don't know if you know the model, but he gives you so many rules. He gives you +1 to charge, and all the units close by to him regain models when they die, in the command phase.
Oh, nice.
So this is where it gets tricky, but yeah, he's really, I use him a lot. So you deep strike him to get, or no, you can't deep strike him. You have to put him on the table. He does an action which gives +1 to charge. So then you're charging everything, because you're deep striking 8 inches away with your unit. So now you have a 7-inch charge, rerollable. So you can take anything on. And then when they die and they think, that you're out of range for holding the objective, they regain models and they can move on to the objective.
Yeah.
In your command phase before you score your points. So, I mean, Icon Wards all the way. I would say Icon Wards every time, but probably, it's a top pick. I would say that one is a really good one. Then you can fill out with the Rock Grinders, which is also, they look like trucks, but they're basically dreadnoughts with transport capacity that blow up automatically for 1 CP. It's a great unit. They're these trucks where you have the plow or is a dozer blade or something that it shoots, it fights, it blows up, and it transports guys. And it can auto advance 6 inches, so you can just shoot it like a ballistic projectile into your opponent's deployment zone and just blow it up. It's a really fun unit. So I would, if I had the points, I would take 3 of them. Perfect. But I realize now that's almost all of the units. And there's so many good units.
So we have 3 minutes left. So do you do you have anything you want to tell any of the GSC players out there? Any parting words before Zoom abruptly cuts us off at 40 minutes? Yeah, no, I think Genestealer cults are in a really, tough spot in a lot of tournaments. They're not scoring great. I've still to see a really, solid auto win list. But it's also one of the good things, everyone who's playing Genestealer cults are already a winner because they're playing something different outside of the meta. We talked about this last time, but we're the Loki of the pantheon of armies in Warhammer 40K, and which makes it so fun, because we can take anything on. We won't win all the tournaments. We're not one of those. We won't get nerfed because we're not that good. However, we can take on Eldari, we can take on Tyranids, we can take on Armor of Contempt armies, and all the good things. I'm so, while others dread the new rules for World Leaders or Imperial Guard or whatever comes out next, I don't know, I'm looking forward to it because I know that we can take them. And I think all the Genestealer cult players are with me on that one. We can take anything. It's been a really good couple of months since the Codex dropped. I'm looking forward to playing you and everyone else with it. Perfect. Well, Bilbo, thank you. I want to end this so we don't cut off at a weird spot, but I want to thank you for your time, and I'll give you a quick call after this ends and then to follow up, but thank you. And when the new book comes out, maybe we'll get you on here again for the new book. How's that sound?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Perfect.
Please.
Keep
in
Bilbo.
touch, man.
Yeah, and I'll see you at OVO.
Yeah, see you in Vegas, man.
All right, thanks.
Take care.